There was a crackling sound, faint but insistent, that echoed through the dense mist-blanketing rustwood forest. Daniel had been following it for hours, his flashlight casting weak, feeble beams into the eerie monochrome around him. The air was thick, not just with fog, but with an oppressive weight that pressed against his chest and sank into his thoughts. He'd ventured here after hearing the stories, the Rustwood Signal, they called it. Ham radio enthusiasts spoke in hushed tones about the strange frequency that broke through static late at night, broadcasting garbled voices and unsettling noises from this remote wilderness. He hadn't believed it, not at first. But when the signal came through his own equipment at 3:13 a.m. last night, Daniel knew he had to investigate. The stories were one thing. The coordinates embedded in the signal, pinged directly to his location, were another. Now he was here, regretting every step that had brought him into this godforsaken place. The foliage seemed unnatural, the trees far older than they should be, their bark twisted like diseased veins. The farther he walked, the less the forest resembled any place he'd known. Shapes flitted through the corner of his vision, too quick to see, too quiet to hear. He kept his headphones around his neck, plugged into a handheld receiver tuned to the frequency. The noise was louder here, more distinct. A fragmented voice, speaking words just beyond comprehension. Sometimes it laughed, a raspy, wet sound that sent chills down his spine. "Help," the voice garbled, breaking sharply through the static. Then silence. Daniel froze, his breath catching. It was the first clear word he'd heard on the signal. "Hello," he called out, his voice trembling, pushing back against the suffocating stillness. No answer. Just the hum of the static creeping back into his ears. He pressed forward, following the noise. Then, without warning, his flashlight flickered and died. He fumbled in his bag for spare batteries, but the faint glow ahead stopped him cold. It was far away yet unmistakable, a soft, pulsing light in the heart of the forest, casting everything around it into unnatural relief. The static in his headphones grew unbearably loud as he approached, the garbled voice becoming a low, incomprehensible chant. The light came from an old communication tower, its skeletal structure blackened with age and rust, blinking rhythmically as if it were alive. Daniel hadn't expected this. How could such a tower exist here, miles from any road, unmarked on any map? The static shifted, and abruptly, the chanting stopped, replaced by a sickening wet sound that reminded him of flesh being torn. The voice returned, harsh and guttural now. "We've been waiting," it said. Daniel felt his stomach churn. "Who's there?" he shouted, stepping closer, though every rational nerve in him screamed to turn back. Beneath the tower, the ground was wrong, soft, squishy, with a stench that burned his nostrils. He pointed his flashlight, now miraculously working again, at the dirt. No, not dirt. Skin. The ground beneath the tower was lined with stretched, pulsing skin, human and yet not. Eyes bulged beneath the surface, rolling wildly as he stepped closer, fastening on him with overwhelming desperation. The moment his foot hit the fleshy ground, the static ceased. The blinking light overhead burned steadily now, its bright, unnatural glow washing over him. Everything went quiet, except for the faint sound of breathing all around him, above, below, inside. Suddenly, the voice spoke again, louder, echoing not just through his headphones but inside his skull. "Stay," it commanded. Daniel stumbled backward, his entire body fighting against the pull of that single word. He turned to run, but his legs refused to move. Every muscle in his body jerked like a marionette on strings, dragging him back toward the tower. His flashlight slipped from his grasp as he clawed at the ground, uselessly. The voice grew harsher, angrier. "We need you," it rasped. Then he saw them. Figures emerged from the fog, their silhouettes unnatural, bodies contorted into shapes no human frame could achieve. Eyes too large, too bright, connected by ropes of sinew and flesh. They seized him with hands that weren't hands, their grip cold and slimy. One leaned close, its face, or what should have been a face, a blank, rippling surface like water. "You'll be the signal now," it hissed softly. Daniel screamed as they dragged him to the base of the tower. The ground shifted beneath him, the skin stretching open to reveal a pulsating black void. His screams were swallowed by the abyss as he was pulled downward, the voice returning to the static once more. Somewhere, a ham radio crackled, and at precisely 3:13 a.m., a new voice broke through, low, garbled, and begging for help.